looking at the list, there's so many hamstrings. I agree that the training has changed over time, and the influence of science over the last 15 to 20 years has totally changed the game, and it's changed the athlete. But what hasn't changed is the human body.
D. Mariner's scored some long tries, and he's a quick player. You just chuck him in there, eh? Between the, I guess, the last two Kiwi players, they're both Samoans. Yes, kia ora whānau, welcome back into our show, a massive round of rugby league. But before we kick off, I want to introduce my crew first again. Ephraim with all the energy, Dills at the back, and Willie.
Morning.
It's great to be here. Hey, just before we go into our rugby league conversations, I just want to give a massive shout out to our good mate from another show, Madison Bartlett, who is now a player director of the RLPA. How good? Congrats, Madi. Awesome work. Keep it up.
Congrats, Madi. She's our third NRLW player to join the board in recent times, so good on you, Madi.
Big responsibilities.
Make sure you're holding it down for all of us New Zealanders and stuff like that. Anyway, speaking of NRLW, there's a lot of those players in the Women's State of Origin, which is taking place at Suncorp Stadium this Thursday at 9:45 New Zealand time, 7:45 Australian Eastern time. Are you guys excited for that game? There's been some controversial stuff. New South team came up.
Yeah. Oh, there's always controversial stuff around the New South Wales team, both men and women, isn't there? Never stops. Always, I guess the Queenslanders always know who they want and who they get, and they pick who they are having in their team. And when it comes to the New South Wales team, they're always trying to find people, most probably playing people out of position, or even there's a bit of controversy around the halves, and I think that's where obviously the conversations are at the minute. But again, it's exciting for the women's space. The game's about to kick off. The NRLW season's not too far off, but it starts with a massive game at Suncorp Stadium on Thursday. Both states going at each other, always a great spectacle, no matter if it's the women or the men. So really looking forward to watching some Origin. It's a build up to the Magic Round weekend, which is an exciting time for all the players and also all the clubs. All the big dogs are there, man. What a weekend of rugby league coming up.
Yeah, first of three in the series. First time there's going to be a 3-game series kicking off on Thursday, and I know the girls will be excited, just like the guys are, and the fans are getting hungry to see some exciting football. There's a lot of talk around the men's game about the Origin selections coming up in the next week or two, but the girls take centre stage on Thursday. And as the game's grown with the women's NRLW, so has the names and some of the superstars and the status of some of these players. They've grown too. We've got some real superstars, and there's some superstars in this game. And Tamika Upton and Brigginshaw from Queensland, two of the real superstars. Ali Brigginshaw of the last couple of years, a real good leader and director for Australia. But Tamika Upton last year, she was almost, for mine, the best player, man or woman, in the game for what she was doing. She was incredible. And her efforts to get Newcastle the grand final, she was superb in that game. And same for New South Wales, Emma Tonagato. She's become a real superstar in the game, so is Isabel Kelly. So there's some superstars on both sides. It'll be a great 3-game series starting on Thursday night. Really excited for it.
Just back to Tamika Upton for the Knights, obviously 2-time premiers with them. A couple of her teammates, the South Wales sisters, were both not selected for New South Wales. Can you explain what the decision-making is behind that at all?
It's a bit like what Blair was just saying. There are always arguments in New South Wales camp about selections and who's missing out. That's them infighting. Don't worry, Queensland's all right. We're sweet. So, yeah, there's always going to happen with any team you select. People are always going to say they've missed out, they should have been in. And probably because these two have been very, very good for New South Wales and been great servants to Australia as well in the past, the two sisters. Their omission, which I'm not sure why, there may be injury, maybe form, or they've seen someone else play better. Again, that's New South Wales. It comes part and parcel with them when they pick their teams. But I'm sure the replacements will be just as dangerous.
Well, I certainly hope so. Up the Blues as usual. I'm always rooting for them. Moving on to maybe some Queensland news, because he's a big Queensland name. Actually, that's a pretty bad segue. But David Fifita is going to the Roosters, which is okay. I'll read out. Last week he obviously had those talks. We talked about he came down to Sydney to talk to the Panthers. After our show, he also spoke to the Roosters, and it seems like whatever they could offer him has swayed him. He's going to be signing there next year for 4 years, $3.3 million, $820K a year. He rejected his option at the Titans, which was a $1 million a year for the next 2 years. So what's happening with David Fifita at the Roosters?
Yeah, I thought it was a bit of a strange call, to be honest. I would have liked to see him next to Nathan Cleary and at the Penrith Panthers, because I think, you're on paper, and I guess this is on paper, but in the form that they've had over the last 4 seasons at least, or even the last 5, that they're a chance of going to win the premiership again, and also not losing too many players in the off-season and going around and competing at that top level again. I'm not saying the Roosters won't be able to do that as well. I think if you look at the Roosters' form this year, mate, they are doing some great things on the field, but they're also losing a couple of big profile players. Obviously, Joey Manu, Suaalii might be going as well. So I don't think they're as strong as going to be as strong as the Penrith Panthers, but when you've got the man Nick Politis in the background at the Roosters, anything can happen. So what we see on or hear in the media about, he's taking it for less, there may be a little surprise somewhere else for David Fifita. And again, if you think about the Gold Coast, you think about West Penrith, think about Bondi. It's kind of like you're going like for like when it comes to lifestyle. He's maybe chosen a lifestyle decision. This could be around a decision around lifestyle, but also understand that, hey, we all know what Nick Politis does for the game and how much he loves the Roosters and how much, if the Roosters want someone, they go after him and they normally typically get them.
Yeah, we spoke about it last week, about him talking to the Panthers, and then not long after we spoke and did last week's show, it came out that St George were entering the race to try and sign him. But when I come back, I said last week, when the Storm or the Roosters or Penrith ring you and they're on your phone, you answer it. And obviously he's answered it when the Roosters have come calling. He's sat down and he spoke to Ivan Cleary. Obviously he was happy with what the Roosters sold him and how Trent Robinson told him about the club. But yeah, what Blair is saying, they're losing a lot of players. They're losing a lot of stock next year. Suaalii, Joey Manu, Luke Keary's retiring, Jared Whitehouse-Hargreaves is going to England. So they're going to be a very, very different looking team. And whether they've told him they're going to build a team around him and put him in there, not sure what's happening with Angus Crichton either. So he could be still playing back row there. But he'll be a superstar for them. It's a big market team. Sydney's a big market. So a lot of it now for players is around their branding and about what they can make away from the game. I'm sure that's played a part in it, and having, as Blair said, having someone like Nick Politis who is so influential in the game, and I'm sure he's had a little whisper in his ear and had an influence on his signing too.
Yeah, so I'm sure the Roosters fans will be very excited about that one. Obviously, with those guys that are all leaving, to bring in a name like David Fifita really gives them probably hope that they can keep this run of form going. We'll get to the game that they had later on, but next up is Dane Gagai has re-signed with the Knights. So he's extended it's a 3-year contract. The next 2 are guaranteed, and then the third year, 2027, is a mutual option between him and the club if they want to keep him on. He's a pretty big figure now. Like, he's the most experienced player, I think, in the whole team. He's got a lot of stuff behind the words that he says in like the dressing room and stuff. Pretty important for them, I guess. Yeah,
massive signing for the Knights, because the Roosters were chasing his signature as well. And we just said this conversation about David Fifita, normally the Roosters get who they want, and this is most probably one that they lost. I think, if you have someone that's going to replace your Joey Manus and your Suaalii's, he's most probably the person you want to get in there with his experience, his knowledge of the game, I guess his leadership, but also it's a great signing for the Knights, and I guess he sees things in the Knights where he can not only help on the field but off the field for the younger kids coming through and the development of other players behind him. This is a massive signing for the Knights, and I think they're moving in a right direction at a slow pace. But this guy does it. He's done a lot for the game. Also played in the Māoris, and he's passionate about his people, both Indigenous and Māori. But also he's an Origin player that he's a competitor, and he's great at what he does. So I think for the Knights, awesome signing, and I guess the Roosters lost a good player there.
A great keep for the Knights. As you said, his experience alone, being the most experienced player in the group, he's playing on form. Came up with a great kick to set up a try on the weekend, and he's still got the talent behind him, and he's still young enough. One thing I like about him, especially this year, is how he's responded to, and there's no other way for me to put it for him, but it would have been heartbreak that he missed out on the Origin series last year after being such a great player for Queensland. He was so consistent, but Billy Slater saw something else, went with a different crew, but he's responded in the right way. And he's definitely put himself in a position to be in contention for this year's Origin series. So the way he's grown from that little bit of adversity, that will have made him stronger again. And I saw a really nice clip of him and his family, and he's got his focus right on the game and his level-headedness around outside of the game as well. So, yeah, he's going to be great for the Knights going forward. Unfortunate for the Roosters and anybody else that were in the race to get him, but he comes across as a great person, but he's a wonderful player and a great acquisition for them.
In your guys' opinion, does he take that centre spot for Queensland off of Val Holmes and Hammer from last year? Because obviously Hammer's coming back this week coming. Val Holmes had a bit of a nightmare this game week. Do we see him? Would you like to see him replacing, getting his spot back?
Well, I'll tell you what, he's not going to let anyone down because he never has when he's put on that Origin jersey. So I'd love to see him back in the jersey and in that arena, because you know what you're going to get with Dane. He's a competitor, and I enjoy watching him play when he plays for Origin. So I think he's a chance. I think the Knights have been winning slowly. The Cowboys are gone on a bit of a slump at the minute. Does Billy stick to his guns and keep the same team, which they normally do? Or does he just make a subtle change? And I think when you make that subtle change, it's the right changes for the team anyway. I think, you want to pick players in form. Obviously, there's a lot of loyalty around the Queensland team and what they do, and it's a spoken thing in the media when it comes to Origin selections that they normally pick and stick and they stay loyal to their players. But again, you've seen in the past last year, Dane Gagai missed out because someone else was better than him, and that's what Billy Slater thought. So he picked him, same as Kalen Ponga with Reece Walsh. He picked the guys that he thought was going to get the job done, and normally works for the Queensland team. So I think he's definitely put himself in contention, like you said, Willie. He's put himself in contention to be a part and be in the conversations, and I think he's good enough to be there for sure.
I think where he's been great for Queensland is on the wing. I think he's been really, really dangerous every time he'll play centre and do a great job too. But I think he's a great winger for Queensland, and I think with Murray Taulagi being out and not having played for a little while, I think there's a spot there for him. He could jump into centre if they decide to shift either Val Holmes. But I think going along with what Blair is saying, they do show a lot of loyalty, Queensland, and always have done. And I think they'll afford some sort of loyalty to Val Holmes for what he's done in the past.
Yeah.
He's not quite on form at the moment, but there's a way that players have been in that Queensland jersey, not quite on form at club level, but when they put on that maroon jersey, they grow another level. They grow into that state of origin player, and the arena brings the best out of them. And I'm sure that'll be the case if Val Holmes gets picked. But yeah, Dane Gagai could play centre, but for mine, I think he'll take one of the wing spots or Xavier Coates, I think.
Yeah, definitely an informed player. Good job on Dane securing his future a little bit with the Knights. It's only been 8 months since Tevita Pangai Jr. decided to void his last year of his contract at the Bulldogs and leave the NRL. But he might be coming back now. In that time, he's started a professional boxing career, and it seems like he's now stopping. There's news that he's been in contact with Bellamy at the Storm, but then the CEO of the Storm, Justin Rodsky, I think that's how you say it, has said that they won't be getting him. Could he be on his way back in this season? Do you guys think that's a move that any clubs in particular could make?
This wasn't hugely spoken about when Tevita made a decision to give up the game of rugby league to go and chase a boxing career. I think he's a very talented player, and obviously tested his skills over in the boxing game as well, and started really well. And then obviously over the weekend, bit of a TKO over there. So he's most probably reconsidering, the boxing future. But in the meantime, I don't think, if we honestly thought that Tevita was going to leave the game completely forever and retire from the game, I think we were kidding ourselves, because he still wants to play rugby league. And, he spoke about him being forced to play the game. Like, you play the game because you enjoy the game as a kid, and you're good at what you do, so you turn up every week to do your best. He just went through some tough periods through his career where there's most probably a lot of hype around what he can deliver, and most probably didn't live up to those things. We've all been through those times. I had all been through those times. So you're not always going to be at the best, but you want to be close to that week in, week out consistently. I think if there's a team looking for someone and they're desperate, they're definitely having a chat to him. I think if we're talking about the Melbourne Storm, I know the CEO said they're most probably not going to take him, but I think, if there's a place to go for Tevita, it's the Melbourne Storm. It's like for all those players that kind of find themselves pondering around whether they want to make this a career or not, the Melbourne Storm normally sort you out real quickly. And if it doesn't work down there, then at least you know that you've given it a go, because they will soon sort you out. I think, like I said, if there's a club that's keen for Tevita, they'll grab him and move him into a position either, in the next few weeks or not.
He's not getting any younger, and whatever he decides to do, he's got to wrap his head around sticking to it. And he flirted around with the exhibition fights and had some success with that. I think it was always going to be tough to try and convert at such a late age to boxing against fully fledged professional boxers who have committed to that sport throughout their lives. I think it was always going to be a tough one for him. Very few people come into it late. And the pugilists that dedicate themselves to it from a young age, they're a different class to those that start a bit late. Yeah. But, he's had some adversity throughout his career. Started really well as a young fellow at the Broncos, came through, signed a big deal at the Dogs, went through a low period, especially after Origin, when he made his debut for New South Wales and went downhill a little bit, decided to walk away. Boxing hasn't quite worked out for him, walking away again. At some point, he's got to decide, what am I going to do, and dedicate myself to it. I agree. Melbourne will really be a place that if you commit yourself fully to it, they'll help him make the best out of it. But time is running out, as it does for everybody. He's already behind it. The game moves on so quickly, and if you're out of it for 8 months, 12 months, it can be too late. But I'm sure there's still a bit of time left for him to try and make a comeback.
Although I did say the Storm CEO said that he wasn't interested in getting him. Bellamy did say he would love to have him in the team.
Oh, there you go.
So, who's really in charge at the Storm is what I'm saying. Like, if Bellamy gets his way, maybe he will be headed over there. How do you guys think he would... Because the CEO says that they want players that are fit and ready to go right now. In my opinion, that doesn't count for much, but still. The Storm are already high up in the table. They've been, getting the wins now. Wouldn't it be good enough to just get him in now, and then he's an asset all the way into the late stages of the season? Wouldn't that be good enough?
Well, there you go, bro. You're starting to think. You're starting to think about the game and how it actually works. So I think you're on the right track there. I think it's get him in now while they're going well. Prep him, and in a month's time, you slowly push him into the space. You don't give him big minutes because he hasn't played for a while. And I guess Craig Bellamy's the master of what he does down there. He never plays guys that are inexperienced or have been on the sidelines for long periods on on the field. So I think it's an opportunity. And I think if Craig Bellamy wants Tevita Pangai, which I think he can add X factor to him, as long, like you said, Willie, he's willing to commit and work his butt off to be the best that he can for that place, then I think, sign him up and put him in the background and work his butt off and toil away down the background, because I think there's an opportunity at the Melbourne Storm to be a part of that team, and what a great system to be in.
Yeah, real opportunity for Melbourne as well for him. Nelson didn't get off to the start of the season that he would have liked, played a lot of reserve grade. So he'll be able to come in and give some competition to those front row stocks. And Welsh has obviously got Origin ahead. You never know what's going to happen to players. There could be injuries, and Welsh has had a few of those. So he'll give some cover. So competition, cover for places, it's a win-win.
Speaking of Bellamy, he activated this coming year's option on his contract that he signed in 2022. So he will remain the coach for the 2025 season. It seems like a lot of what's keeping him there is that community that he has. I saw a thing about Cam Munster begging him to stay. He said he would have been off to the Dolphins, which would have been pretty mean. But so there's a big community in the Storm, I guess you would know, Adam, around Bellamy that's keeping him there, just kicking a little bit longer.
Oh, well, he's played a huge part in a lot of young guys and now older guys' careers and lives. So he spent a lot of time with a lot of these boys and these players throughout their young development into their NRL careers now, and obviously Cam Munster playing 200 games. So, through, the start from, Greg Inglis, Israel Folau, to Cam Smiths, to Cooper Cronks, to Ryan Hoffmans, some of the legends, of the Melbourne Storm, he's had a huge part in their development and where they've gone on into their career. So I guess he feels like it feels like a bit of a father to a lot of these players, and I guess that's why he commands the respect that he does. And I guess you give him the opportunities to take it 1 year by 1 year at a time, because of what he's done, not only for the game, but also down and created that culture and that community down at the Melbourne Storm. The fans love Craig, the members love Craig, the community that he's built up over the time that he started. Mate, he was tough in 03 when he first turned up, or 02, and he's just worked his way to the top from there, and he's had he's put a real big emphasis on hard work and resilience and commitment to not only to the club, the culture, each other, but he's built this family around, this culture that he's created. A lot of people come down there because they understand what Craig Bellamy can do for them. They don't go down there for anything else but for Craig. And he teaches them from, along with his staff, teaches them the game of rugby league from the basics right up to where they need to be prepared and being able to play at your best consistently week in, week out. So another great signing for the Storm. Great that Craig Bellamy's still hanging around, because I think he still has so much to offer. I enjoy listening to his conversations after games, because, and I watch Harry Grant sit next to him and waiting for him, most probably a spray, but Craig has relaxed a lot in his time, and I feel like he's nice and clear with his messaging and his understanding. He hates talking about the refs, and I know they try and push him in those things, and he tries and find his way around there. But man, what an awesome career he's had so far, and great for the Melbourne Storm.
For Melbourne, it's such a massive thing through the success that he's had, obviously, as far as grand finals, having teams up top of the table. But he's had success at affecting young men's lives, as Blair says, but he's created superstars year on year, generation after generation. Now, he lost Inglis, he loses Cam Smith, he loses Cooper Cronk, loses Billy Slater, then he gets the next crop, Jerome Hughes, Jesse Bromwich, Pappenhausen, Nick Meaney. So his success on the field speaks for itself. But being around a dressing room is almost like a fountain of youth for a player and for the staff members who are lucky enough to be around it, coach included. Yeah. So you look at Wayne Bennett, who's 75, but you see how young he is for a 75-year-old, because he's around the dressing room. And the youthfulness of the players that you hang around with has an effect on you as a coach and as an older person. So that'll be the same for Craig. And I no doubt that he's feeling young and refreshed, being around this group and being around the game, around the dressing room, there's an energy that's almost addictive that you want to keep going with it. And it's addictive helping players become the best that they can be and seeing them become the best they can be, but also being excited to turn up to work every day and still feeling like you're young and fresh. So it's a great re-signing and a great option for Craig to take up for him. But great for the game as a whole, but great for Melbourne.
Yeah, nice. We'll move on to the games next, but just before we do, there's a bit of an injury crisis that's seemingly happening at the moment. I'll just read off some of the players that got injured this week. Tom Trebojevic, Jason Saab, Nathan Cleary, Billy Walters, Tyson Gamble, Stafford Toa, John Bateman, Nico Hines, Roger, Sean Johnson, Kieran Foran, Phil Sami, AJ Brimson, and Harley Smith Shields, all picking up injuries either before the game or in the game. What the heck is happening?
It's a crazy list of players and some high-profile players as well. Round 10 was a little bit like that. There's a lot of injuries going through that competition and that round. And, not to mention the profile of, obviously, Nico Hines, which was a big matchup at the Melbourne Storm 1v2, and there was a lot riding on that. There was a late mail that he's done a calf muscle, and I guess as well as Nathan Cleary, Sean Johnson, and Roger, a lot of players and clubs that need those guys on the field, especially at some of those sites, especially the Warriors, for example. So I guess the game's moving real quick. The game's moving real quick, but if you notice, I think a lot of those guys that have got hammies either had previous hamstring issues or they're a little bit older in the competition. With the game moving faster, not only out wide but through the middle of the park, the more pressure get put on a lot of our players. So I guess when you speak about and this is when I was playing, is they track a lot of your workloads and all these things now. So, at one session you might only have to be doing 3Ks, the other one is 5, and a lot of those things. So a lot of it goes back down to, I guess, looking back on your training week and where they put, I guess, more workload here and less there, or do they need to hit some high speeds? It's gone real technical when it comes to the off-field stuff in preparation to the game. So with the game going a little bit faster than it has every single year, which then puts a lot of pressure on our older guys, which puts a lot of pressure on workload, which puts a lot of pressure on those guys that have had previous hamstring injuries. This is what we're getting. The game is creating more injuries, and the clubs are having to be a lot more delicate around the loads on a lot of these players, because these key players need to be on the field because they're an integral part of some of the teams that need them right now. So, the game's moving quick, and we're getting these injuries, these HIAs in there as well, and there's some picks as well, because the contact's getting bigger, the players are getting more athletic, they're faster, they're stronger, and you have to commit. It's a game that just keeps giving, and you put a lifetime into this sport. You train every single day, you make that commitment, and these are the things that come with the game. And that's why we when it comes to contracts, they speak about he's going for this much money or he's not getting enough money. You don't have a long time in the game, and I think the opportunity is that you make the best or make the most at what you do right now, and when opportunities come, you pick the right opportunity for you. So the game's moving quick, and this is what's happening.
The two main different types of injuries are the structural injuries, where you do knee or a shoulder, you might dislocate a finger. The other ones are the soft tissues, and that's the alarming one. Because in looking at the list, there's so many hamstrings, so many of those hammies are going to the highly tuned athletes, the big, fast fellas who are explosive and are quick. And I agree that the training has changed over time, and the influence of science over the last 15 to 20 years has totally changed the game, and it's changed the athlete. But what hasn't changed is the human body. The human body hasn't changed, and sometimes I question, are we changing too quickly? Are we changing things in the right way? Now, these are questions that coaches and head of performances need to come up with the answers to. And you're always trying to stay ahead of the game. You're trying to stay ahead of the opposition. And sometimes when you're talking about running longer, running faster, and managing the loads, don't always get it right. And it's quite an alarming figure of players, and that list of high-profile individuals that are on there. Yeah, there's some questions around the people who are in charge and what we're doing or what the game is doing as far as the workloads and getting them ready. We want the best product out there, but we also need our superstars who sell the product best. But yeah, it's a crazy time. It's a very crazy time. We're only halfway through the season.
I was going to say that the product, the product is the product. Are we trying to put too much emphasis on the product being this real good product that we can sell to the audience, but forgetting that the players create that through what they do? If I think about the last 3 weeks, a lot of the weekend games have been heavy on track, heavy fields, wet. Has that been a problem? You train during the week on fast pitches, and then you come to the weekend's game and it's wet and it's heavy. I'm guessing that's a big part of it as well.
I've got no doubt about that. And we used to have this in England because in the winter the tracks are heavy, muddy, it's wet, you get snow and it becomes even heavier. You have to try and go to an all-weather pitch. So it's what they call a 4G, artificial turf. You can't keep swapping and changing.
Yeah.
We found that if you go from artificial back to pitch to grass to artificial and back to natural, at some point you've got to get some of these. So it does have an effect. If you stick to one over a period of time, your body gets used to it and the injuries come down. But yeah, when you train on that fast track and then all of a sudden you're playing on heavy pitches and you can't help the conditions, yeah, that's another element that you've got to take into consideration.
So is the game more trying to speed the game up? Are they taking any, like, I think they've got to take some blame for trying to fasten this game up to create this product, but also I guess the clubs have to obviously take that into consideration. If the game's moving quickly, how do we find ways to make sure we've got our best players on? And I guess, like you said, the science is all there now. They use a lot of science, and some guys are resting more than others. Some guys can't do this session because they've already reached those Ks on that day. So I think the product is moving really quick, and they're trying to cut down the reserves, and then the coaches are saying, we need an extra man just in case something happens there and we're losing players on the field. And then they're having a product like the Titans game where they are scrambling to put people on the field because they're having a 9 defend in the centres, and I guess the game's trying to move quickly, but like you said, the human body hasn't changed. No. So we're trying to keep up with this game by making sure that we've got the best players available, but then we're getting the results of all these injuries. So it's a real hard situation.
Yeah, because there's pros and cons to everything. Yeah. We spoke the other week about the game speeding up, the fatigue factor hurting the big fellas, and the little guys coming back into the game. The offshoot of that is we may lose some for a little while until we can really get an understanding by the figures and by the scientists of what the best format or the best system is to use.
Bit of the human condition, was just a never-ending problem that I guess it will always be there, but you guys obviously raised some great points about injuries. So best wishes to all of those guys that are out for various periods of time. Obviously, Nathan Cleary out for all of Origin is pretty sad. But anyways, we'll move on to into the games and to some positive news for myself, which was the Dolphins versus the Sea Eagles at Suncorp, 30-24 to the Dolphins. Fins up, baby.
New jersey this week, see?
Of course.
I saw you during the week. Tigers.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, well, I was.
Rabbitohs.
That was just like a.
Do you have like a hat and you just pull out a number? Which team this week or?
Not a hat. It's just whatever the passion inside me is saying that week. That's what makes me choose. And this week,
Okay.
I saw Trey Fuller score that chip and chase try, and I was like, man, I'm whipping out my Dolphins jersey. And speaking of Trey Fuller, I think. Like, he is just a talking point of this game. I said before, Hammer is coming back this week, next game. Can he keep his spot, Trey Fuller?
Yeah, I think I listened to first before we start. I thought that was a great game of rugby league. Both teams been at it, and obviously the best team won on the night. I thought the Dolphins played a real good attacking style of football, and I think they did the same previous week as well. And I spoke about how good the game was last week that they played, but I heard Wayne speak about after the game saying Hammer's back next week and Hammer's going to be our one. And normally what Wayne says normally stays the same. I guess the thing for them is where do they put him in the team, Trey? Because I think what he's done while Hammer's been injured has been sensational, and I know how much the boys respect him. I heard Jesse Bromwich talk about how tough he is, and like I've seen some of the contact that he does at fullback. He just comes out and just tries to whack players. I like what he brings. I like that he's got a bit of off-cuff play about him, like that chip and chase, like he said. Like the bounce has to go his way, but you've got to put yourself in those situations. I think both the spine is playing enormous for the Dolphins. I think they're allowing Cody to free himself up at wide, and Cody's dangerous at wide when the line's nice and squared up. And I think the forwards are doing a good enough job to create the opportunities for the guys out wide. And I think the spine's most probably in form, and they're doing a really good thing at the Dolphins and playing some exciting brand of rugby league.
Some worrying signs for Anthony Seibold and the Sea Eagles, how they're building up good leads but getting mowed down early. They had an 18-0 lead in that game pretty early in the game, and by half time, they're taking control of the Dolphins, and that's worrying because attacking wise, they've obviously got some strike and they've got some direction. Even with Turbo not being there, they'll have some direction. Defensively, though, some real concerns around their ruck. I thought Jeremy Marshall-King was really, really dangerous and picked some really good moments to get out and run and pick on the sloppiness of some of the Manly defenders. So that brought the Nicarimas, that brought the Katoas back into the game, that brought Trey Fuller back in. So once they got control, like all good Wayne Bennett's teams, they were controlled, they were patient, they just do what they do, but they do it really methodically well. And they were really patient with it and took control. Some individual brilliance, and amongst that, with Trey Fuller, outstanding chip and chase in the conditions to chip, regather, get it back and score. Yeah, a bit of celebration. So, they've really grown in their 2 years in the competition, the Dolphins. And big story that could be coming as far as Trey Fuller and what happens to him. As this story came out that Averillo might be talking to the Dragons. So if that happens, that could mean Trey Fuller to fullback and Hammer to centre in the long run. But again, it's Christian Wolf's team next year. Is he making is he calling the shots now? Is he putting his team together? Wayne Bennett obviously signed Averillo. And is he not wanted by Christian Wolf? Who knows? But I'm sure Christian Wolf will be starting to shape his team for what he wants when he takes control next year.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think Demetrio under Wayne Bennett, Seabolt when he went to the Bronx, and now Christian Wolf, is making sure that you have an understanding as assistant coach that this is my team and you get the players that you want in and around there before Wayne goes, because if Wayne's making those decisions for you now and you get stuck with these guys, if there's any salary cap issues, then you're going to be stuck with the team that you have. I think he obviously likes Fuller and what he does. I think, he's a competitor, he's a first grader, he needs to be there. And Jesse Bromwich said he's been doing that the whole time in Queensland Cup. So important that, they sit behind the coach, but making sure that they pull some strings as well, because Wayne's going to be going and you're going to be left with this team, and if it's not the team that you want, you're going to find yourself in the same situation of Jason Demetrio. But also a massive shout out to Herbie Farnworth. I thought, important player for the Dolphins and a massive signing, but having him back out there, I guess it's another strike weapon to that edge. But also if they get Hammer back as well, they're slowly getting their team together, and they've been able to win those games where they're down 18-0. And then they come back, like you said, it's a Wayne Bennett side. They just stay in and just keep ticking off the system, set by set, kick by kick, and going through the motions and making sure that they do everything methodically. And then you got your spine doing their job. So Herbie Farnworth back. big hammer, they'll be on again.
Yeah. On Wayne Bennett, like everyone obviously is talking about him leaving. Is he confirmed that he's definitely leaving? Or is there still a chance that he could stay?
The club have pretty much confirmed.
Right, yeah.
And I think when he got the job, he was signed for 2 years. And the plan was always for Christian Wolf to come in and take over. Be his assistant, sit by, get a feel for the club, and then take over. So as far as I'm aware, it's always the plan.
Yeah, that was the plan, eh? And he's going somewhere. They reckon he's going to Rabbitohs, but I reckon he's in the box seat anyway, wherever he goes. There's going to be options like, Wayne can turn places around pretty quickly. He can get the buy-in from players, individuals, the board, everyone involved. So whatever he does, it always ends up being Wayne's way. So, anyone who gets Wayne is a great
Wayne's
to get.
way.
Peter V'landys at this moment in time is the emperor of rugby league, if you like. He's in charge of the game. Whatever he's saying is going. He wanted Vegas happened. So he's come out and said that he wants Wayne Bennett to consult with him on the expansion teams and where the game's going. So if the emperor wants to sit next to you and take your words of advice, you are in the box seat.
Wayne Bennett, Darth Vader.
Hey.
A little bit of that action. On to the next game, the Penrith Panthers versus the Penrith Bulldogs, if you will. Bluebet Stadium, 16-10 to the Panthers. The Bulldogs were good. They've proved themselves quite a bit, but, it's the Penrith Panthers, man. They're just too good still.
We speak about the well-oiled machine that they have, and they just keep ticking over player after player, and they keep turning up. They understand their game model, their style of play, their football. And even though I thought the Bulldogs put up a good challenge, and it was always going to be that way, a lot of ex-Penrith players in there, and I thought they stood up as well. They went after the Panthers, and there's a bit of push and shove and a little bit of niggle out there, which is expected. The Bulldogs are moving quietly. I think they're finding a little bit about and understanding what their DNA is as a team, as a club. And, it was a tough-fought win for the Panthers. I thought they had to work for it. The Bulldogs made them work. But you always felt that the Panthers were always in control. They've just got players out there. Although they lost Nathan Cleary early, I thought, they still look really strong and solid. They got X Factor all over there. Edwards obviously is consistently the man. And, bro, you are in the New South Wales team at fullback. If not, we are rioting. So, you're the man, Dylan. It would say, I know you're not even going to listen to this, but if you listen to this, my bro, you're in there. The Penrith Panthers are a solid team and a strong win, and just keep ticking boxes, those guys.
Yeah, across the park, they're just so in sync, and they have a great understanding of what their individual roles are and their collective part. And they're so dangerous every time they take the field. And they've got those individuals like Dylan Edwards, Brian Tor as well, best winger in the game. And the try that he scored, he has so much work to do. He twists and turns and rolls over and beats a couple on the way and gets it down. He's just such a handful of a player, and they're such a handful of a team. But the Dogs, they're coming along nicely. As far as the year is concerned, they've made so much progress from last year, and I'm really happy for Cameron Ciraldo because he's really worked hard behind the scenes to get the culture right, worked hard on the field to get his right team out there on the field, and he's, as you said, he's made some buys from his old club at the Panthers. He's collected a few of his ex-players in there, and they're gelling really nicely. They'll get a big team in the next little while. As long as they tick off the teams that they're supposed to get, the teams in around them, around that 8th position, and then they get a team in the top 4, top 5 along the way, they'll be in the playoffs.
Yeah, because of course, like in this run where they've picked up their form, it's been against the Panthers, the Storm, where they've lost, but it's close. So when they don't have to be playing those games as the season goes on, you wouldn't be surprised to see them shoot up even higher up the ladder. So, yeah, to be honest, they're a top 8 team. And I just want to shout out one of our favourite players who we've all talked about loving a lot, Reid Marnie, with 64 tackles. The grub. Shout out Reid. On to the Broncos versus the Eels, and the Eels tough luck continues. They lost 30-14 to the Broncos. There were some pretty outrageous tries. I mean, Dean Mariner, he scored 13 tries in 14 games now with 2 from the whole field. Yeah, Eels, they're doing it tough, eh?
Yeah, that was those 2 long length tries were just poor execution and wrong options to take. I think there was a couple of times they went down the short side and they just chucked the ball, and either they were in front or not really for it, and it hits the ground, and you ain't stopping that fella when he gets going, man. D. Mariner's scored some long length tries, and he's a quick player. So I thought, I guess the Eels allowed the Broncos to take their game away from them with some of the execution that they had. I thought, Blaise Talangi, I don't know where the Eels play him, but he needs to be somewhere in and amongst their team. I thought he was outstanding for them, for a young kid that, they're under a lot of pressure down there at the Parramatta Eels, and he stood up. I thought he'd done a really good job. He looks good. He looks like he's got some X factor about him. He's strong. He's got some good feet. He can play some footy. So I thought the Broncos, clinical. Obviously, everyone has stuff to work on. They're not at their best, but they're managing to do things without Adam Reynolds, which is a great sign. They've got some good forwards that get them some go forward, but I don't think the Parramatta Eels are anywhere near good enough to beat the Broncos on the day. They tried hard, but just not good enough.
Yeah, they were victims of their own downfall. They plotted their own downfall there, Parramatta, through their lack of execution. But the Broncos, they had a really strong amount of energy defensively. They got a little bit fortunate when Jordan Ricky picks up the ball when they go short side and intercepts it, gives it to Dean Mariner to go 60, 70 metres. But the other one where Ezra Mam picks it up, they're just more urgent than Parramatta when the ball goes to ground. He's more urgent than anybody else on the field, which is what Parramatta needs. And one of the first things you're taught as a young fella is to get on the loose ball. Ezra Mam beats the whole Parramatta side, picks it up, finds Reece Walsh on his edge, and then he goes the distance to score the try. So whilst they've got themselves into positions to score tries, just lack of execution. Sometimes that comes down to confidence and timing. But yeah, Blaise Talangi, a real great performance from him. They've tried him in the halves early in the season. Didn't quite go as well as he did at fullback. What do they do when Gutherson comes back? That's a big question for Brad Arthur going forward. But yeah, the Broncos really impressed with how they defended the game. Highlight reels all over the park with the ball. Ezra Mam, again, dangerous. Reece Walsh kicking game, sets up a great try. But defensively is where I thought they really won the game. They're aggressive. I think Piakura is outstanding as a defender. His tackle technique is one of the best in the league. Nice and low, hits people hard. But their energy as a group to cover each other is something that's going to take them a long way.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to go back to Talangi and Gutherson. I think we spoke about I spoke about Gutherson and obviously having this knee injury before he got the knee injury and didn't look good out there, but the game's moving quickly. There may be an opportunity now to move him up a little bit closer to the ball. But then again, if Mitch Moses comes back and you got Dylan Brown, and you got Talangi, then you got Gutho, where do you put all these guys? But I definitely think Blaise, he looked comfortable at fullback. I think he could be an option for them to go there. Where they put Gutho, he obviously needs to be in the team, but I think there's some tinkering to do with them. But they're under pressure like a few other clubs at the moment. The Eels. So again, it's looking within, and again, I know this is most of the old cliche that all the coaches are saying. Looking, the only way they get out of this is sticking together and trying to dig their way out of this hole that they're in, because there's a lot of other teams in the same situation as them as well.
Yeah, there's been a lot of rotation around their team, obviously. Yeah. That what got Blaise the chance in the first place was on the centre in round 4 or something. So, fitting him in, I think, is definitely got to be essential, man. He looked like the man. Moving on to the Knights versus the Tigers after Dylan asked this
One quick question. Sorry, lads. Dean Mariner, do you reckon he's almost there for a call-up? Do you reckon he's a Kiwis boy, or is he going to go Aussie? Is he in that sort of... Or is he starting to push that?
eligible for Aussie? I'm pretty sure he moved over too late to be eligible for Aussie.
Has he only recently moved over, or did he come through the school systems? I think he's an opportunity to, I guess with the pathway now, making sure that New Zealand Rugby League have the Kiwi Ace. That's important for the guys like him. The guys like Xavier Willison that can come through that pathway. The guys like Ben Takura coming through there, because Ben Takura played Kiwi A's last year. So very important that New Zealand Rugby League keep that Kiwi A's, because those guys come in, they train alongside the Kiwi boys at the top, but also if someone falls over, they are pretty much a pathway straight into that Kiwis team. So I think he's in a chance to be in and around the conversations. Definitely, everyone is a chance when it comes to conversations around Kiwi positions and players, because again, you're picking the right combinations, you're picking the form players, and you're also picking guys that you think are going to win you the game, or when you come to that Pacific Championship. So in the conversations, definitely Kiwi A's is really important, but also, being able to be selected for the Kiwis on form, which he's doing really well. If he consistently keeps playing the way he is, there's no doubt.
Might have a bit of Samoan in him too.
Yeah, well, between him and I, he's going to be playing for either or. Okay, so he doesn't have someone in him.
Making it into the Kiwis though over the form winger of the competition, Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Is he on the same side as Ronaldo, or would he be the other side?
Other side.
You just chuck him in there, eh? Between the last two Kiwi players, they're both Samoans. They're both Samoan players, Ronaldo and Jermaine. They're your incumbents at the moment. So those two boys are your New Zealand wingers / Samoan wingers. So they're going to get over them.
The Knights versus the Tigers in Tamworth. 2014 to the Knights. Bradman Best making his case after the injury to Turbo. He's just stormed right in at the right time and said, yo, pick me, guys, pick me.
Yeah, most probably his best game this season, without a doubt. He was the difference in that game for the Knights. I thought the Tigers may have been able to get this one, and I was watching the game, and then I seen the Knights take off a little bit there. But then the game was in the balance throughout that game as well. But the difference was Bradman Bess's performance. He was making tackle break after tackle break. He was hard to handle. He was tough. Origin again coming up, and obviously injuries. He's definitely going to be probably one of the centres in there for sure. I thought, the Knights are slowly just pushing through without Kalen Ponga, and I guess the pressure's gone off them, because every time Kalen Ponga's there, the pressure is around the Newcastle Knights, and then the pressure ends up going on to the coach, because everyone knows how important Kalen Ponga is to the Newcastle team, and if they don't win, it's because Kalen Ponga didn't play his best footy. But at the moment, I'm liking what they're doing with the players that they have. They're consistently just performing and turning up for each other and getting the job done without having the pressure from the outside. No one's talking about the Knights at all anymore since Kalen Ponga has been injured. And the guys that have filled in are just getting the job done, and they're getting these wins, which is good. Again, both teams here. I know the Knights played the Warriors last weekend. I didn't think they were at their best anyway, but they managed to win that one. Same again with the Tigers. These are the games that you have to be winning. But I also thought this game was in the balance for the Tigers to get it as well. Would have been nice to see Benji Marshall get another win. Not to be. Bradman Best turns up and runs 235 metres and was a beast.
Yeah, a bit like Trey Fuller. David Armstrong's come in for a superstar and done a really, really good job.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest difference is a lot of people won't be surprised if he gets shuffled on when Kalen comes back. There aren't a lot of questions around that one, but he's doing a great job, and the coach is getting a lot of trust and faith in him because of the performances he's putting in. Gamble got injured.
Yeah.
So he's a dangerous one. It's all going to fall back onto Jackson Hastings now, whether Cogger comes back in. We've got to wait and see on that one. But I've not seen too much of Bradman Best in open spaces. I've seen him in close quarters, close to the line, powerful, fending people off, bumping defenders and scoring tries. But in open spaces, man, he's quick. He's got some real toe. He showed that a couple of times on the weekend. He was really, really dangerous when they went out to his side, making breaks from 50 out. So, yeah, he's timed his run really, really well to find some form close to selection time. But the big one for me is the NRL have done it great. Penrith took a game to Bathurst, taken a game to Tamworth. To the people in the country who can't get to a game normally, I think it's a really big tick in the box for the NRL and what they do for the whole rugby league community. You know, if you can't come to us, we'll try and get it to you. And that sort of, they've taken it to Darwin as well. And they do a really, really good job in promoting and growing the game.
There were a couple of bans issued in this game, or potential that they'll be issued for this game. Daniel Saifidi for that. It looked way worse than I think it actually was, but like with the arm swinging and stuff. But I think the one that we could talk about is the Isaiah Papali one where he tripped Saifidi, I think.
Yeah.
And on the field,
Nah,
it was
Leo
a penalty.
Thompson.
Oh,
Leo
yeah,
Thompson.
that's right.
Yeah,
It was
Leo Thompson.
On the field, it was a penalty, but I don't think he got put on report, and no sin bin. And that one was like a pretty bad trip. Like, what is tripping?
I reckon he was going to score a try there too. Until, Isaiah stuck his foot out. I think he just gets wrong-footed, and the reaction sometimes is to just stick your foot out. That's the reaction. And it's more of a reaction thing than a deliberate action. Because sometimes you get beat if you're moving one way, your foot kind of, you know what I mean? So, but if he doesn't trip him, I think Leo Thompson goes over the line and scores that. I thought most probably, Isaiah's moved back to the middle of the park. I thought he looked pretty strong through the middle of the park. He's a worker. He loves being involved in the game. I guess the development of Isaiah is to picking his times of where you work handy and you just have to play the game so that you play bigger minutes, whether it means ball playing a little bit more. I don't know if Isaiah does too much ball playing. A back row he's used as a battering ram because he just runs hard. They must be going to do a similar thing in the middle of the park, but I guess for him to keep him on the field and play 80 minutes consistently, he's going to have to mix his game up, whether he's working really hard or just stepping back and playing a ball playing role. But yeah, it didn't look good that trip, so I think he'll definitely cop a week on the sidelines.
Yeah, I thought it looked a bit naughty. It looked like a blatant trip, even though blatant in the fact that he did stick his foot out. Whilst he was off balance and he did wrong foot him, he did extend his left foot out, and it did look like there was, however minute it was, there was some intent, as small as it was. But yeah, and the fact that he could have scored a try is doubly worse, but we'll wait and see what they say at the judiciary.
If he is out for a week, or a failed contest would be 2 weeks, then they will be without him and John Bateman for the next 2 weeks, which it could be pretty rough. That's two leaders and their big name forwards. That could be pretty bad for them.
Well, you won't be able to contest that tripping because you can see in the action it's a tripping motion. So you're going to take the guilty in the early guilty and take the 1 week and not go and challenge it, because you cannot go to the judiciary when you can clearly see he's put his leg out in a tripping action and say, I didn't try and trip him. So you're not going to get away with that at the judiciary. So you'll cop the 1 week. Yes, it's crucial. It's a big loss to the Tigers because, like a couple other teams, like I said earlier, they are under the pressure as well. So to lose key players, both internationals, and do some really strong players for the club, he'll be sitting on the sidelines along with Bateman.
Do you think tripping in general is regulated well by the refs and stuff? Like, that should be a one match ban for that tripping? Any trip should be a ban straight away? Like, is that a good precedent?
That's always been the case. The game has always come down pretty hard on people that have tripped. It's always been a no-no.
And how, I guess, obvious, because obviously there's some trips that aren't like his one where he kicked out his whole leg, but it'll be like a little foot or something. Or there's those ones where the trip isn't like a sticking out a leg, but you're just like your body's in the way. It's sort of like an escort in a way, but not really. How do you think it's good how it is, the tripping rulings, or?
Well, they will. I guess that's like you said. He didn't get picked up for it on the game, or didn't get put on report, but they review every single game, and it's case by case. And this is what they come up with. They obviously seen that it was a deliberate action, that he's gone out. And I reckon this is the worst tripping one I've seen for a long time because he's literally put his leg right out and tripped him over. You can see that you can kind of get away with the smaller ones, but in today's day and age, there's too many cameras, and players are obviously lying down and say you kicked me. I think there was one in the Warriors game too. Dellen's. Someone tripped Dellen up, and Dellen was holding his leg, and then they went back and it was a penalty. So, those things, I don't know if he got charged for that, but it was an action of that was on Jared. Jared comes flying down. It kind of didn't even look like a trip to me, but he's come out and he stuck his leg out a little bit. So, it's each case to their own. That's must be the worst one I've seen.
Shot, you've just got Jared a week.
Jared. Well, he's played his 300 game for the club. He's played his 300 NRL game. He's also played his 300 game for the club. So if Jared gets a week, what's another week to his 25 weeks he's already had on the sideline anyway, my bro?
Moving on to the Dragons versus the Rabbitohs at Netstrata Jubilee Stadium. 2018-14 Dragons. Latrell Mitchell did return, and he played good, but his performance will probably be defined by that one moment at the back when he goes to...
In the end goal?
Yeah, in the end goal. That's kind of sums up all of the Rabbitohs' issues, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm I didn't expect the Rabbitohs to win, but I didn't know what you were going to get when you're waiting for what Rabbitohs turns up now. You're waiting for Cody Walker to step up, and I thought he did some really good things early in the game. But again, with these teams that are struggling for confidence and trying to struggle to win games, when a team starts scoring a couple of back-to-back tries, everyone goes back in their shower and goes, oh, not this again. And I felt like that's what it was. Latrell tried his butt off to try and do things, but Latrell always flirts with danger, like you said, with that in-goal one. He always sits on the line of, is it going to go out, is it not? And then just tries to chuck himself in the position. But sometimes you just back yourself and just hit it out. As a player in this, if I was in the same team, it's like, man, your job is to either make the play or get it out or pick the ball up and run it back. So I think, when you're looking at the Rabbitohs, they're struggling again with confidence. They're another team that's going to be, they're obviously in the spotlight and in the media for their performances. Everyone put pressure on, how Latrell's going to come back and perform. I think, again, because they're high-profile players, they are expected to turn up and change things. Cody Walker, for example, as well. But collectively as a group, they're just not up to the standard that they need to be in. And I think they'll be the first ones to say it, that, in patches they were okay, but majority of the game just not really in a position to win their game. And the Dragons, I guess, with the likes of Ben Hunt and Lomax and what they're doing, the way that he can control a game, they were always going to be in a better position than the Rabbitohs. So, Lomax continues to perform on the wing. I think he'll go to Para on the wing. But again, I guess he's done some good things. He was quite quiet last week, and people were saying, oh, well, he's played himself out of the Origin, then he puts himself back in the picture with his performance. So I think between the whole game and in the individual players, just most probably not the best game that the Rabbitohs wanted to have, because I think there's an opportunity to try and beat the Dragons. I don't think the Dragons are the quality that they have, but they're doing a good job of winning these games that they have to.
I'm still surprised when I see the table, regardless of how the Rabbitohs have gone this year. I'm still surprised to see them at the bottom with the squad that they've got and the roster that they've put together and the quality of player in their group. Even with what they're missing, they've still got quality out on the field. But when your confidence is shot, you try and come up with plays, and when you're relying on Cody Walker to come up with something and he doesn't happen to do it, you're missing Cam Murray. It's such a tough period for them as a club. They called some young fellas up, they're injured. Jai Gray has a great couple of weeks, and then he's out for an extended period. So when things are bad, they go really bad sometimes, and that's where Souths are at the moment. And I don't know when I stop being surprised at their position on the table, because the Titans are starting to find some wins and they're going to start pushing away. Yeah. And they could be looking at that wooden spoon a lot earlier than the end of the season. But for the Dragons, the spine, Ben Hunt, been outstanding for the last couple of weeks. Lomax obviously hitting the headlines for his try scoring and goal kicking and 2-point field goals just before half time. Outstanding. But two guys who I think have been very, very good for them are Jaden Sewer and Faitala Mariner. They've been great on the edges, really dangerous. Faitala Mariner was great at the Dogs, I thought, and unfortunate that they let him go and looked quite ugly there for a little bit for him. He was the club captain and looked like things were going really well, but out of favour totally in pre-season. Found a home and really found a really good spot. Looks happy. Looks really happy playing dangerously, both of them on the edges.
Luciano Leilua, of course, is coming back as well. So they do have a good squad, like a bit of an under-the-radar one, and Flanagan is doing a good job with them. Just on the Rabbitohs, a bit of insult to injury, but it's just a stat. They've become the first team in NRL history to concede 28 points in all but one of their opening games out of the first 10 rounds. So, yeah, they've broken the record for conceding basically the most points in the opening round. So it's pretty rough for them out there.
Yeah, I had them, before the season kicked off, I had them in my top 4. Because on paper, got a strong side. And I guess you add Jack White into that, even stronger. Latrell stays on the field and does all these things that he does. Cody Walker, but it's just nothing's gone right for them.
They were good on the Charity Shield.
Yes.
So I don't know if something happened in Vegas.
Wow.
I don't know if something happened. There was
Conspiracies.
Things just turned around from the start of the season. Because I had them way up there too, hence my surprise when I see them where they are. Because I had them pinned high up in the table to be challenging again. But yes, at some point something's gone wrong for them. And it's got to try and figure that out.
Yeah, we might find out in future times if there was some Vegas controversy maybe.
You might have to dig a little bit deeper.
Do you think I should?
Yeah.
Someone might come after me though.
Nah, go for it.
On to the top of the table clash, the Sharks versus the Storm at Amy Park. The Sharks snapped the 14-game win streak of the Storm at home, 25-18. Good job, the Sharks. I mean,
Are you a Sharks
Sharks fan
supporter?
now.
well,
Are you a Shark? What?
my fellow marine animal,
Oh,
the Sharks. Just had to, they did it without Nico Hines as well, which, the Storm had injuries too, but just good on the Sharks though.
yeah, it was a late one here in New Zealand, the last game. Managed to get most of their game and watch their game because I thought, top of the table, 1v2, you got to stay up and try and watch this one. And then obviously hearing the news that Nico Hines was out late, I thought, but with the losses of Jerome Hughes, Pappenhausen, you thought the Storm were going to do it tough. But you also know that whoever comes into the Storm, that they can get a job done. A lot of hype around Sua Whalongo and what he can do. Had some real great moments in their game. I guess the thing for me with him is, consistency on the field at NRL level. You can see the talent that he has. You can see what he can produce when he has his opportunities. It's the thing that it's repetition when you're playing at the back with soft hands, and most of the time he's going to back himself to go take anyone on one-on-one, which he wants people to. But when there's opportunities to pass a ball or draw and pass as a fullback, you've got to execute those things. So a lot of learnings for Sua at the back playing fullback, but it's having some confidence and some consistency around repetition playing at fullback. A big game for both clubs because again they've got a bit of a rivalry since the grand finals. Normally when you play in the grand final, that creates the rivalry in itself, and they went after it. I thought, Wishart was outstanding for the Storm, and he tried his butt off. He tried to keep them in the game. There was opportunities there, to win the game for both teams to take it away from each other, but it just kept you on the edge of your seat most of the night.
Yeah, that young Wishart's a real Mr. Fix-It man for him.
For sure.
Throw him in anywhere. Brandon Smith was sort of that player for him before. He's played at fullback, he's played in the halves on the wing, and really, really good at halfback. And I think naturally he's a hooker and can cover that. But yeah, he stepped up in a big way when they really needed him. Jerome Hughes not out there, and they needed someone. I actually picked Melbourne to win the game. And it was unlucky for them. The Sharks, very, very good down there. Both teams were chasing their 6th win in a row, but that came to a halt for Melbourne. And on the Sewer thing, I think it's a big, big step up. It's a massive step up from Cup to first grade. The gap is huge, and people understate it. And he's had some highlight moments, but they've only been moments that he's been on. In 80 minutes, a lot can happen in the game at NRL level. So he'll take a lot of learnings. He'll take a lot of learnings out of that and a lot of experience to keep growing every single week. And no doubt, as we spoke before, Craig Bellamy will be doing a job to help him grow as a player and keep his feet grounded. One moment that I had in question in the game was Harry Grant's admitting.
Boy, oh boy.
And I think it's a very dangerous place we're going as a game to take away the charge down. We'll speak about another one a little bit later in one of the later games, but I think the difficulty is there's minimal contact from Harry Grant. He goes through, and I don't know if you expect the defender just to stop once they've gone through, because he barely touched his toes. But as Craig Bellamy said after the game, if that's where we're going to go with it, that's fine. You got to sin bin everyone now, because Josh Aloiai didn't get sin bin. He got report, but didn't get sin bin. But we've got to sin bin everybody that goes on kick pressure and touches the leg of the kicker. That's where we're at, and I think we could be making it right for our back as a game.
Well, that's the confusion for guys that, like us, has played the game, but also must be frustrating for fans as well, because Josh Aloiai is one as a sin bin, goes off, the Warriors, could take their game away from them, win it, they draw the game. And then you got this one, which is, a sin bin as well, but he barely touched it. Some others have been penalties. So again, I think if this is what it's going to be, then I guess that's what Craig Bellamy was trying to say without putting pressure on the refs, is that, well, you've made a statement now. Now you need to be consistent, and that's the problem that we've always had in the game, is the consistency around calls. There was a few other calls in the game after that one that I want to talk about as well. But again, the game's a high-pressure game, and there's some calls in the game that you need to be strong, and you got to make those decisions on the spot. And I think in that instant there, if you even watch the replay, surely you watch the replay, or surely there's the guys up in the box saying, hey, it's just the penalty, because you've seen the confusion on Harry Grant's face around, I didn't even do anything, really. He didn't even feel like he'd done anything wrong. Yeah. But this is where, if the game's going that way, and I know he was speaking about kick pressure, if we can't take the kick pressure away, because that's a big part of our game. I know Luke Keary did one on Sean Johnson, got the ball back. If he hits his leg and gets the ball back, what? Do we call it a penalty or a sin bin? You know what I mean? So we're all about, and I'm all about, now that I'm finished, the game is protecting the halves. Back in my days, you know what I mean, it was free for all. But I think now, if the game's going down that way where they want to protect the halves, we can't not have kick pressure. No. But we've just got to have a bit of consistency of what that looks like if someone touches leg or someone dangerously takes out the leg, and then making the calls, whether it's a penalty or a sin bin, because I don't think they're sin bin offences unless he's up in the air and he does a somersault and lands on his head. Yeah. Or there's some intent as he's diving for the leg and taking out the leg. So I think there's some consistency around the players and the coaches asking for that.
Yeah, I have very little or no argument to the Freddie Lussick one on Lachlan Ilias in reserve grade, where Lachlan Ilias broke his leg. Now, that's dangerous play. You've got to talk about player safety. But Josh Aloiai, the game's in the balance. The game is in the balance there. So is Harry Grant. We're asking our players to compete on every single play, to go 100% out. You're going to make minimal contact at times. He's trying to keep the kicker safe, but unfortunately he's made minimal contact. So if that's the way we go, that's the way we go. But the charge down is such an integral part of our game, and it can change things. As it happened in the Warriors, it turned the game. You get the technique right. And again, I've got the same question as Blair. If I'm going down for a charge down and I make contact with the ball, but in turn I make contact with the leg, is that a penalty? Or are we like football? If I get the ball, it's fair play. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's a big question for me.
The people that should answer that question, obviously, the referees. Is there any like press conferences that the refs hold? I think they have their meetings together, right?
Yeah.
The referees.
So Graham Ellerslie will come out today and explain all these questions around the reffing and the interpretation of why they gave them this and this. So the big controversial question will be around Harry Grant. Was it a penalty or was it a sin bin? Was it fair that he got sent off? I'm going to say he's going to come out and say no. He should have been staying on the field. It's a penalty at worst. So it'd be interesting to hear some conversations today on Graham Ellerslie and how we, because I know last week he stuck up for the refs, especially Casey Badger around, her controlling of the game. And he was adamant with everything that they were doing. Obviously, the protection around refs, not only because she's a woman, but the protection around not being able to mouth off to the refs and once the refs make a decision. But at the same time, you have to be firm on your cause and you have to be strong in what you do. So I think it'll be interesting to hear what they say. But yeah, there's a lot of confusion at the minute.
I think it's just really bad because of this sin binning call. We now, well, not we, but Melbourne Storm fans and NRL fans in general sort of begrudge the Sharks this win, which I think, they still won the game, but a lot of people, I've seen comments online and stuff of people saying, oh, but if there was no sin bin, they wouldn't have won.
Well, you take off a key player and he's a 9 who touches the ball most probably the most in the team. He's an origin player, he's a leader, he's their captain. So you take off a player in the middle of the park, which then exposes, obviously, you're a man down. In this competition, it's really hard to defend with 12 players on the field. But someone that's an integral part of the Storm structure and what they want to do around the ruck to create those spaces for the others outside, it takes away, I guess, the hype around 1v2 because it's if they come out and say that wasn't a sin bin, well, then it's kind of like it's null and void the win for the fans, not for the player, for the teams, because a win's a win. You take the 2 points. It doesn't matter what happens after the game because you've lost. So it'll be a sore point, and I'm guessing the fans will know that he shouldn't have been sin bin anyway.
Yeah. So good on the Sharks, obviously. Not a lot of people are going to say that. That's part of why I was bigging upping the Sharks, because everyone's giving them the poo-poo on their win for not...
The poo-poo.
That's the thing. My dad
it's the
says
naughty
that.
and the poo-poo. For me.
I'm sure you've had one of those deals.
What about young Atkinson having to step in for Nico? Any thoughts on his performance?
I thought he was great. Young, under pressure, having to fill in for Nico Hines, who's been enormous with the Sharks and how they've got to where they are, top of the ladder, creating wins. Playing his best footy, I think, for a long time since he was obviously Dally M. So I thought he'd come out and done a really good job of, kicking high. I guess there's a plan and a structure and a system that they want to stick to, and I thought he looked like he fit straight in there and got the job done for them. He looked exciting at times and had some great moments for the team. But if you can get players like that, if you've got a well-oiled machine and you can have players that come in and get jobs done and you still manage to get wins, then you're doing some really good things. When a team's consistently winning, below them, they're pushing to try and get into that position. So when they get that opportunity, they want to make the most of it, and I thought he did a really good job for the Sharks.
Since he stepped in for Braden Trindle, I think he's been fantastic. And he's shown what he's capable of and shown who he is while sitting back and letting Nico Hines take the reins. He's been able to play his game and learn over the last couple of weeks. The important thing when he stepped up on the weekend in Nico Hines' absence is not to become a Nico Hines or try and play like Nico Hines. They didn't need that. They needed Atkinson to be Atkinson at his best, which is what I thought he did. He didn't try and step in and try and do what Nico Hines did on every single play. He just got his hands on the ball, controlled the team, did what he did, at cup level, but transferred it. Because you get to first grade on the trust of your coaches for what you do at that level. So when you step up, all that's expected of you is to do the same, but do it really well, do it consistently. And that's what he did on the weekend. So great job by Atkinson. He'll keep growing, and he's another threat to the Sharks.
He's got an interesting story. I was reading this, that he was on the verge of giving up league, I believe, 2 years ago. So he's 23 now. When he was about 21, he was moving up to the Sunshine Coast to become a tradie, and the Sharks signed him off of I think just club from up there. They managed to scout him out. So yeah, good on him, man. He was almost lost to the game, but that goes back to that thing from a couple of weeks ago we talked about, where if it's your dream, just keep at it.
You give it that one last crack, and when you think you're not gonna take this on as a career, you go, hold on a minute, you sit down, you reflect, and you make a decision whether you want this or not. And if you want it, you do everything possible to try and make it your dream. And if you fail at doing that, then you say, oh, well, at least I gave it my best. And again, you don't want to have some ifs or buts and doubts that, what if I could have done this? It's like, if it's your dream, put everything to the side, give it as much attention as possible, work your butt off to doing it, and then if it works out, then there's your reward. If it doesn't, at least you can know in self personally, you know that you've given it all you can. So good on them.
And sometimes for some people, it's that moment comes at 5 o'clock in the morning when they're putting the tool belt on. It's tough in the real world, especially for some of these young fellas who've come through the system and they've had that, and when they decide to walk away and the reality of life hits and you're still young enough, all right, I'll give this one more go. That's when you realise I didn't really give it everything that I had the first time around, but I know what everything means now, so I'll give it. Some players, unfortunately, that's too late for them, but he was young enough to do it.
Yeah. Moving on to the Warriors versus the Roosters at Allianz. 38-18 to the Roosters. The scoreboard actually didn't end up as bad as it looked like it could have from the start of the game. Adam, I'm sure you got plenty of thoughts on that game.
Yeah, well, obviously wasn't the best result for the Warriors, and obviously losing Sean, Roger early. They're trying to find form in the team, lacking a lot of confidence, like, the Cowboys, like the Parramatta Eels, like the Rabbitohs, and they're trying to find ways to win games. They come up against a red-hot Roosters team that from the get-go, I think within 14 minutes it was 20-0 or 22-0 in 14 minutes, and you thought, geez, they were going to be in for a long day. With the Roosters playing the way they are, and you've seen their previous games, I think they put 40 and a 60-point game on. They had players and strike weapons all over the field. Joey Manu, obviously Angus Crichton, who's coming into form around Origin time. James Tedesco fighting for position in Origin as well, and they turned up to go after the Warriors. I guess for me, what I wanted to see from the Warriors was most probably a reaction or some intent off the back of their last few performances. They had an opportunity to bunker down in Terrigal or in Sydney and reflect on individual performance and also collective performance of how we can get ourselves in it. I heard the coach talk about, and again, a lot of them are talking about looking within and how they can get themselves out of this hole. I didn't see too much of a change. I feel like at the minute it looks like there's a lack of, consistency around their own performances. Obviously, again, they're under a lot of pressure from the outside and again within as well. And they're not. I guess there's a lot of. I thought there was moments there where people are doing things on their own and looking after their own backyard and making sure that they perform at their best. But in the meantime, it's hurting the team. There's not I feel like, as strong as I think that they are as a club, as a culture, it doesn't relate to their performances on the field because, again, I'm seeing people in that team doing things individually to make sure. And I think there's some individuals that are doing so, playing really well, but they're playing well for themselves and not for the team collectively.
I said this a week ago to somebody else. Winning's a habit. Winning becomes a habit. And when you're winning, whilst you might not be playing well, there's little moments and little things in the game that you just do well because you're just in the run. You push harder, you support, you move, you defend with energy. whilst you might not be making your tackles as well this week as you were last week, they're just coming off because people are covering for you. Losing's a habit too. Losing's a habit. And I thought after a couple of minutes, when Luke Keary comes up with that charge down, you could just feel the Warriors became deflated.
Yeah.
When they moved the ball out, and some of the technicalities of the way the Roosters played, they played spot on. They played at the right defenders. They exposed Mitch Barnett on the edge, got Joey Manu on Adam Pompey and Poirier Corsi out there on their left edge for the Warriors. But after they conceded early, they go down again. There was a moment when Angus Crichton scores off the grubber kick. And he just, if you pause the video at the lead up of the play, that left edge doesn't move. The left edge of the Warriors did not move at all. So when he scores the try, there's another angle of the play where there's players just standing there, players looking at the ground. They're almost beat up. They've got to change that confidence. They can't keep playing the victim, otherwise it's going to keep happening. You've got to turn this around. And again, Blair said it, you're going to sound like a broken record at some stage. You just got to keep working at it. You've got to keep finding that confidence when you get back to training. And it is disappointing that they got that time together in Terrigal, in Sydney, got the whole week in camp. But again, they started really, really slowly, got behind it. Full credit to them for getting 18 points in the end and coming back. But the Roosters, just so much quality at the moment. And they're in that confident run. They're in that habit of winning at the moment. And part of that habit was when Dom Young makes the 70-metre break, gets tackled by a great chase by Dallin. Sam Walker out of dummy half. I'm not sure if he actually sees Daniel Tupou, but he sees space. And he feels, because of that winning habit, he feels that his teammates will be chasing. Great kick, great awareness. Puts it in the corner. Daniel Tupou scores what I think is one of the plays of the year from Sam Walker.
Yeah, I guess I was just going to highlight that moment too, Willie. Especially, I guess, a great effort, like you said, from Dallin to get across there. But when I was watching that game and I'm looking for who's back there, and I'm looking at that right side, I saw Mitch Barnett and I saw Jackson Ford, two back rowers. So one's from one side and one's from the right side. So I'm asking, my question is, where is the winger?
Made the tackle.
Where is the centre?
Yep.
Where is the halfback? Where is anyone else
Yep.
in that position? So Dallin's gone over from his side, which he's identified Sam Walker, that the winger's in the tackle.
Yep.
So there's going to be space out there. So the question is where were the other players? Did they just give up on Dallin and not think he's going to get him? Because I think I was watching a reaction on the chase. You could see Edward Corsi, you could see Adam Pompey just watching, and then they go, oh, he's going to get him. And then they started moving. Rather than moving first and again, we've always said this, and coaches have always said this, work first, rest later.
Yep.
Hey, forever, that's all you hear when you're a player, is you get your rest when you get the ball back. So you work first, which would be get your butt back to the line as fast as you can, as quick as you can. And I know it's hard. I've been in those situations, and you're not always going to get back there. But I would have liked to see more players in the picture. Yeah, no, just in the picture, because you look over there and you see two players. One's come from the tackle where Dallin was and run across there, and Jackson Ford's gone out there to try and put it. So, I guess when you're looking at, teams and the teams that are not confident and are deflated, prime example last week, the Rabbitohs, when there was Dylan Edwards runs back and you look at three people on the line waiting, everyone else 9 players behind the line. Similar example to that is you're looking for guys in the picture to be able to make it a bit of a contest and not give it to them so easy. But I just didn't see that, and I feel like this is where they've got to get out of is this. There's no secret recipe to getting out of this, but being tighter as a group and working harder collectively. And I know they'll say that they're working hard, and I know I get it, but it's harder in those tough moments. So you can be hard at training, you can work hard at training, But when the moments are hard in the game is when the best players stand up. And that's where, I guess that's what I want to see is when the moments are tough, when your back's against the wall, where there's a kick in behind that no one else wants to get it, I guess I want to see people in the picture and I want to see players put their body on the line for their brothers, because we talk about, commitment, and we talk about connection, we talk about, I guess, the camp and being integral together. That was an opportunity to enjoy your job, which is being a rugby league player and being the best that you can, have a smile on your face, but turn up on game day and put in the work for each other. And, we can do all this hard work at training and we can do these things, but when you're not confident and you can't convert that over to points, then you get those kind of results. So keep working hard, Warriors, because, man, you've got another tough game coming up against the Penrith Panthers. And I feel like they're waiting for this bye, which is after the Dolphins. So, man, 2 big games, a tough month of football for them after a early 4 weeks of tough games anyway, and a tough competition that we play in. So, man, there's no easy win in the competition. There's no easy way around things. You have to find ways within to try and come away with, building confidence, but also getting wins. So, hey, good luck in there, Warriors. Jeez,
obviously,
it's a tough road.
Roger and Sean are both injured now as well. They could be out for a various amount of time. I think Rogers is 2 to 6, which is a long range of when he could be out for, and they haven't said on SJ yet. But obviously, there's so much negativity. I have something of a more positive tilted question. Can this be an opportunity for the other players? Obviously, those are 2 older guys, leaders, integral, like in everything that the Warriors do, players. Does this provide an opportunity for some of the other players to like show their stuff, like give them the chance to run around?
Yeah, I'll go back. I don't think it's negativity. I think they've created this expectation. The Warriors have created this expectation of this is who they are from what they've done in the past. So it's become an expectation that when the Warriors turn up, this is what they're going to give you. So when they don't give you that, you're like, geez, what's going on? So we're trying to find answers or find questions within their camp without not being in their camp of why are they performing like this. So we're not negative on the Warriors. They've set the bar really high on themselves. And so from a fan's point of view, we expect that the Warriors are going to turn up and give it their best every week. I'm not saying that they're not, but I expect them to perform better than what they're doing because of what they've done previously. But like you said, when it comes to, I guess, opportunities, they are struggling at the moment with injuries through their pathways as well. But again, people come in. I think Chanel could be back, which would be nice. But again, it's 2 different halves. You got Chanel and
Tamati.
Sorry, my bro. Tamati Martin, my cuz. Bro, you're a freak if you actually have a crack. Nah. So Tamati and Chanel, who are two different halves, both attacking halves. It's how do they fit into the structures and the systems with the pressure that they have already on them to be able to maximise the opportunity and go after the Penrith Panthers. So yes, it's creating opportunity. Edward Cossey's back in on the wing. Adam Pompey's back into the team, who shouldn't have left the team in the first place, but trying to find ways for Roger to be in there. I think he was moving to the wing this weekend, which I think is most probably was the best move for the team, is to get Roger more involved from the wing, which kind of, if you look at Roger's performances, his best games were at fullback with a bit more space. So I think winger can do that, but now they don't have him. They don't have Sean. So it'll be interesting to see how the club goes and who they turn to. Like you said, yes, it is definitely an opportunity for someone to step up.
100%. You look at the Knights in the absence of Kalen Ponga and Cronulla in the absence of Nico Hines. People have had to step up. People have had to take their opportunities. And if it is Tamati Martin and Chanel, then those 2 have got to step up and gel. They've got a few training sessions this week to try and make it click and try and make it work. There's no better way to make it work than against the Panthers. An opportunity's there for them. They'll be sitting back waiting for an opportunity to get a start. So when you get it, you've got to grab it with both hands. And that's for everybody. Backs against the wall. You just got to come out swinging.
Well, they left Marcelo Montoya. They dropped Marcelo Montoya, obviously not performing to the level that he needs to be at, but also for the team. He comes back and plays reserve grade, does a good job down there. Maybe an opportunity now. Edward Corsi, I know they're going to stick with him. I guess this is up to the coach now, you know what I mean? Like, I guess what you do miss with Marcelo, and I know that there's must be few other people not performing to their best either. I guess his experience on the wing and what he can do defensively with having, I guess, being able to compete at that high level consistently. So there is a lot of moving bodies. Most probably, it'll be interesting to see our team list Tuesday and see what they go with. But I know that'll be a 25 name list because again, they're hoping everyone's fit and healthy, ready to go.
Yeah, good luck to the Warriors through this next period and for their game against the Panthers.
Sorry, just button again. Hey, I know we're lamenting the Warriors, but going back to the Roosters, are they premiership contenders now after that performance? What are they doing well?
Well, if you look at their team, they're on paper they definitely are a premiership contender. They're building. I don't think the teams that they've played have been too strong. The Dragons, I don't think the Dragons will be a contender for the end of the year. The Warriors, obviously, in a bit of trouble. But they've got a side there, if they stay fit and healthy, that can compete with the best. And I guess that's all you ask for. If you can consistently have the same squad on the field every weekend, then you're giving yourself a chance to compete with the best teams at the right end of the season. And I think there are definitely a big chance of playing finals football. A few injuries to some key players. It changes a lot in the game of rugby league, but I like what they're doing because they're playing a style of football that's free-flowing. It's a lot of Sam Walker stuff off the cuff, which is always, I think, sometimes not calculated, but calculated, especially when every time fullbacks are in the lines, he's backing himself to do that. So they've got a lot of players in there finding form, which is normally a good sign for a club that's on the rise. And I think they've found what works for them over the start of the season. I think they were slow at the start, but then kind of found what works for them, which is, get the ball to your strike. Sam Walker does his thing through the middle of the park, and then you got Connor Watson and Brandon Smith working through the middle of the park with the big boys, Jared, Spencer, their new back. So they've got a strong side that's going to compete with the best teams.
Yeah, I think they're going to be there or thereabouts. I think they've got pretty much everyone on the park playing for them, playing well. Tedesco's found some form again. Joey Manu's back to his best. The halves are firing. Sam Walker and Keary's got every reason to play well in his last season. So I think they're going to be there or thereabouts. And what I do like about them, and Trent Robinson spoke a little bit about this after the game, is how they're consistently and constantly trying to change their attack. And I thought we saw a different type of attack against the Warriors from them. From the point of the ruck, they played a little bit wider with Keary and Sam Walker linking together, which gave Joey Manu some space on the edges. Usually the centre catches it inside the centre or just on the half, but he was able to skip out and get Dom Young some space out there. And I'm sure, depending on who the opposition is and how the team that they put out is, that'll change too. They're ever evolving, and that's always been a strength of Trent Robinson and the Roosters of late. But they've had to get everybody to buy in and play well. They've got that. They've got the buy-in. They've got everybody on form, along with the constant changing of questions attacking-wise. I think they'll be a real threat.
And the last game of the week was the Cowboys versus the Titans at Cbus Super Stadium, which the Titans got their second win in, 20-18. Got a mighty scare at the end of the game.
Didn't they?
But they held in there. 4 injuries, had no bench by the end.
Man, it's a funny game this was. I was riding home at the Titans. I don't even know why, just because they obviously lost, 4 key players to their team. They had guys out of position. You can see the Cowboys coming home. They've got the strike weapons all over their field. Jeremiah Nanai out wide, and you could see that they're running block for block for block, just creating opportunities for those guys out wide. And you could see that they're under pressure, the Titans. But what I liked was just the Titans were able just to stay in it and turn up for each other. I think Jojo Fifita, there was a try from one side or the other. He comes from one side. I think it was on Val Holmes. They make a break down their left, Titans right. Jojo Fifita comes from the other side, and he just tracks back, which is your job as a winger, to track back over there, and then he ends up just being in a position to make that last diving tackle, and they knocked the ball on. That was the difference in the win. But they got right down to the last, I think it was a minute 15 to go, and they tackled him in the corner, and you've seen all the bodies in the picture. Sam Barrels was out defending in the centres, I think. They had guys out of position. But, man, a credit to those guys. They have been building in the background for a long time now this year. And they've been getting little wins here, and been in the games of a lot of these other teams as well. And that would be most probably the most inspiring game for a lot of those players. And also Kieran Thorne on the sideline, and Philip Sami and those guys, and obviously Desi Hasler, because I don't know if you'll see a more tough performance from a team down 4 key players to turn up and win their game against the Cowboys with the attack and the points that the Cowboys can score.
It's an indication of where a team's at when they take a penalty early on. They have an opportunity in good ball, but the Gold Coast are happy to take the 2 points, and they're in a position that when points are on offer, we're going to take it. And it ended up being the difference at the end of the game. And they were great defensively. And I don't know how many times they were called in to show some spirit and defend their line, but they were great at keeping the Cowboys out, especially early doors. The Cowboys, a lot through Jeremiah Nanai, got back in the game, and when he scored his second try, you could see the concern on the sideline. Poor Kieran Thorne was, what's going on? We're going to throw this one. But they had enough about him. And I was riding the Titans home and cheering them on in that one, because they deserve it. They deserve it for all their effort and for what they showed, and for what they've showed in the season, and what Des Hasler's done for them to show some resilience and some toughness and stick by him. I was happy for Dave Fifita in the end, that the crowd sort of turned and cheered him in the end. But, you can understand them booing him. And
why are the Cowboys booing him for?
Just the fans.
Well,
But-
the Cowboys, the team.
Or
No, the fans.
the fans are booing.
Yeah, but this is at the Gold Coast.
Oh,
Stadium.
Gold Coast. Yeah, the Gold Coast fans were.
Yeah, well, because they're going to lose him. So, but
I
they're-
guess they feel betrayed. He had,
But he
all he
turned
had to
around.
do was stay for 2 more years, and he would have been with them. But he just is like, nah, I'm all goods with that, and left.
But I think that could be a season-changing win for them. Now, performances like that can really galvanise your spirit within your group, and that could turn their season around. I wouldn't be surprised to see them go on at least a mini run.
And they'll have Jaden Campbell coming back soon. Obviously, those injuries, Kieran Foran, Phil Sami, Brimson, Harley Smith-Shields, all in the backs. That's pretty rough.
Well, you don't carry backs really, do you? So that's why you saw the guys defending out wide, and I know how hard it is to defend in the middle of the park and on the edges, but centre position is a tough position to defend. And when you got Jeremiah Nanai coming at you, and you got those guys coming at you real quick with speed, man, and you're not quick. Good luck trying to defend them, but come on, give them some credit, because holy, they were enormous. And I thought, man, like I said, rightfully and I was just riding them. Come on, guys, just hang in there. For some reason, I was cheering on the Titans, because I guess as a player, you know how hard it is when you're in those situations, and you could see that they were just trying to do their best to do anything. They were jamming and jumping up in the air, and then trying to find places to be. And man, they done an awesome job to get that win. So good on the Titans. And like you said, I think they're going on a little mini run here, and they're building those foundations around defence, which obviously we all know that, that wins competitions. If you can have that mentality collectively and together as a group, man, you go a long way. You can always sort your attack out, but defensively comes with attitude, and they turned up for each other that last night and went after it.
For the Cowboys, so the completion rate, the Titans started the first half 100% completion rate. They ended with 85%, which is still decent. The Cowboys had 65%, only completed 25 sets, which was which is 2 more than the Cowboys did than the Titans did in the first half.
Yeah.
So they were not completing strong at all. Obviously, there's a lot of errors that we can look at. The Val Holmes drop, the Semi Bellamy kicking the kick, which was, I don't know what he was thinking, but the Cowboys are just definitely not at their best like those other teams that we've talked about.
Well, completion rate is a big part of the game. If you don't complete your sets, if you don't get into the right field position, you take away the chance of you being able to compete and winning the game. 65% is poor. If you need to be at least around the 85% mark to give yourself a chance of winning. Position-wise, you need at least 50-50. If you don't have that, you're scrambling to try and win the game. So the teams that are in those low completions and are getting less possession than the opposition are normally the ones that are struggling the most. And it's, if you look at the Warriors' completion, they were quite similar as well. Less position. I think they were 38% in the first half. So when you come up against quality sides, you ain't going to be able to compete when you don't have the ball and you don't have completion, because that means you're giving away too many errors and allowing the opposition to attack you.
And you're having to defend so much. Because the Gold Coast didn't have to defend as much. They were racking up points first half. When they start to lose the ball a little bit, and then the energy stocks of the Cowboys go up, they're able to play. So they're able to think with a bit more energy. You hold the ball, you're starving the opposition, you're draining them of energy, you're making them defend, which is the most draining of everything you've got to do in the game. And that's the importance of ball control and completing high.
So that was all the games this weekend. Next week we move on to Magic Round, the Rugby League Festival up in Suncorp, obviously off the back of Women's State of Origin Game 1, which is at Suncorp as well. All of the games are going to be there, so if you live in Brisbane, man, I'm pretty jealous of you.
The Mecca of Rugby League.
You guys know what games are coming up, which ones are the big ones to look out for, anything like that? I think the Sharks versus the Roosters is a pretty massive game that's happening. If you guys want to break down who's going to win that, because I think the Sharks are going to win.
Yeah, I'm going to back the Sharkies. I think after their recent form and their consistency around their game model, I think they got a resilient team defensively. I'm not saying the Roosters don't, but I think they're a more of an attacking style of football players in the Roosters, which works for them. It's their style. But I think defence wins games, and I think they'll be a stronger defensive team. But I reckon that is, and it'll be spoken about, in the build-up to this game, that'll be the match of the round over there. I don't think, the Broncos might play the Sea Eagles. I guess Suncorp Stadium, Broncos, there's going to be a massive crowd there for that game anyway. There'll be some big games. What a place to play rugby league, Suncorp Stadium. They'll get over, 100,000 over the weekend. The women's kick it off, and then they roll into all these games. So a great night. Canberra Raiders off their bye, going up against, I guess, the Bulldogs. It'll be nice to see how the Bulldogs can go on after playing Penrith Panthers, but also see the Canberra Raiders come, because I think they're finding some form as well, but they had a bye. See how they go. So excited for this one. You going to be up there?
I wish. I've spent all my money on jerseys. So
Well, you should pick one team, so then you don't have to wear all these different jerseys.
Well, I guess we'll see which team I did pick when it comes to after the games. We'll see.
Well, normally I'd wait till the teams come out and see what the weather conditions are like and take everything into account. But I think I'll go the Roosters. I think they'll add to their 138 points that they've scored over the last 3 weeks. I think they're on fire. They're on fire attacking-wise. I think they'll steal that one, even though it's Monday and we've still got a few days to go. You've called me out early here.
Yeah, that's why you just got to give it a go, bro, and have a stab and just give it a go and stick with it. What about the team that misses out on Magic Round? Do you feel bad for them? Because you know what I mean? Like, it's a big occasion. All the big dogs are there, the teams, the people, the faces, whoever you want to know. Rugby leagues, immortals are all there.
Yeah.
And then you're the Dragons and you're sitting at home watching everyone else play. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's a fantastic celebration. It is a festival, but yeah, I think as a player, you're stuck in your hotel and you go to the game. Don't get to see that too much. But as a Dragons fan, they're probably the ones missing out on seeing their team going there. But as you said, there'll be 100,000 fans celebrating it, and probably 100,000 plus with the girls' game on Thursday. I know, speaking to some people that were at the Knights last year, they were quite happy not to be going, just to have the bye and use the bye as a break. You're talking about the Warriors looking forward to the bye in a couple of weeks. The Dragons will be no doubt looking at the bye as just a break from footy. There's still a long way to go in the season. Use the break well, but yeah, I know as a player I would have loved to have been there and be part of this.
Definitely a guaranteed 2 points, that's for sure. You can't lose that game if you're sitting at home. That's a guaranteed 2 points on your bye. Beautiful, Dragons.
The only other game that's of note is there will be a losing streak snapped. The Rabbitohs and the Cowboys are playing each other, so one of them will finally get a break from the tragedy of form that they both had and results and stuff. But yeah, so that's what's coming up next week. Magic Round.
Excited. Yep.
See us off, Adam.
Great weekend of rugby league.
Oh, wait, sorry.
I just wanted to ask one more question. You know, since we're just about to wrap up, I'll just throw in my 2 cents at the end there. We'll circle all the way back to the beginning when we were talking about David Fifita and talking about Crichton. Does Crichton decide to stay on with the Roosters? Do you think they keep him on board now that they've got that big marquee signing?
I definitely think Crichton stays on board. I think, you add someone like Fifita to your stocks, it only makes your team stronger. I think he's in the best form he's been in for a long time. Obviously, he had some issues off field that he had to look after, but the last 3 weeks he's come into his own. He'll definitely be in the Origin team in the back row, along with Blair and Martin. But yeah, I think he stays on with the Roosters, and with David Fifita there, just gives them more of an opportunity to be competing at the right end of the season.
I think the Roosters will be trying to keep him. I think the Roosters will do their best to come up with a package that keeps him happy to stay.
Yeah.
I think he'll be asking a question. What are your plans for David Fifita as far as where you're going to play him? He's a left-back rower like me. Am I going to be the left-back rower, or do you see him playing in the middle? That'll be a conversation that no doubt Trent Robinson's already had with David Fifita, but Angus Crichton will want to know and ask all those questions before. Hopefully he agrees. I think it'll be important to the Roosters to keep him. He's already knocked back rugby union, and he said he's going to stay in rugby league. So I think where he's at right now, he's back in the elite company of back rowers in the game, and I think it's important that they do try their best to keep him. I think it'll be good for him, and where he is health-wise, mentally, to stay there. He's comfortable, he knows his surroundings, and he knows what the club is about.
Dylan, I take it you're going for the Roosters then instead of the Sharks for next week's game?
It's a tough one, but yeah, I'll probably back the Roosters. Yeah.
Me and Adam versus you two. We'll see who is right next week. Yeah. I reckon it's me and Adam because obviously the two of us together.
The two experts.
Both experts.
Yeah.
And you only have one expert in your team, which is Willie, of course.
Willie's a pretty good expert, though.
Well, finally, enough of the rubbish talk from our experts. Another great episode. Thank you, lads. Make sure you guys tune in to our next one next week on all our socials. Run It Straight, or even YouTube, this channel. Yeah, go on this channel, watch this episode. That's us.
Make me sweat, make me